going to talk briefly about 40 years of lesbian struggle. Back in the 70s and 80s, the big issue was lesbian custody. What I mean is that lesbian mothers automatically lost their children in custody battles. This was not a big human rights issue. Only lesbian mothers cared, and they had to struggle to get the lesbian community to care, who had to struggle to get the women's liberation movement to care. In 1982, there was a landmark case which allowed a lesbian mother to keep her child. The judge said, despite any embarrassment the girl might suffer, she would be better off being with her mother. But he qualified that and said, the court should only countenance allowing children to live in such households when there is no other acceptable form of custody. So being with a lesbian family was just better than being in care. That's because we had a really bad press then. We were seen as evil sexual beings who shouldn't be bringing up children, and we had to fight against that. A lot of us fought, a lot of mothers didn't fight, they didn't go for custody cases so they would be able to keep contact with their children. So we struggled on for years, and we turned it round by going to court, by using the media, by making films about lesbians bringing up children, showing they were perfectly all right, perfectly normal, and we turned it round. Lesbian strength. The other big issue was losing our jobs. You probably know anyone who was in the forces, Air Force, Army, who was discovered to be lesbian was automatically sacked. That was the law until the year 2000. But lots of other lesbians were sacked. A lesbian teacher who inadvertently came out at the NUS conference was hounded by the tabloid press at home and at school, and she had to leave her job and leave Leicester, leave where she lived. That was quite normal. A lesbian midwife was sacked. Shock, horror. A lesbian who had to deal with naked women, she was sacked. A lesbian bus driver was sacked in Burnley. Why a bus driver? She had a badge saying lesbian liberation. Lots of people wore badges then, support the miners, anti-Nazi. But a lesbian liberation badge, no, because you shouldn't show that you are a lesbian. Heterosexuals can wear rings showing they're married, but lesbians mustn't be blatant. Then it got worse. Clause 28 of the Local Government Act 1988, thank you Mrs. Thatcher, said, local authorities shall not promote homosexuality or promote the teaching in schools of the acceptability of homosexuality as a pretend family relationship. Lesbians protested that. Lesbians abseiled into the House of Lords from the balcony. Lesbians took over the news at 6 at the BBC. They took over the desk from the presenters to express their opinions. And lesbians took over a house in the Ideal Home exhibition and displayed banners saying, lesbian mothers are not pretend mothers. And the Ideal Home consists of lesbians, children, and no men. Lesbian strength. It wasn't just at work we had to hide. In Leeds, like elsewhere, it was lesbians who set up Women's Aid and Rape Crisis and were the backbone of those organisations for years. But we couldn't talk about it. We even practiced doing interviews in the media where we managed to avoid the question about, are you a lesbian? Remember I said lesbians had a really bad press in those days, and we didn't want women to be put off using the services. Because as lesbian feminists, we care about all women. Lesbian strength. So after all these struggles, we are not going to be obliterated. We are not going to be silenced. Lesbian strength.